Yep.
There you go.
Nope.
Yep. Okay. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order, and we'll go right ahead and move right to the business spotlight for Home Federal.
Yeah, so we have Matt Bradford here. Matt, if you'd like to come up and, just share a few things if you'd like to, and then...
Sure. Yeah, thanks for featuring us as the business of the month for the EDA committee. Ian asked that I show up and give you guys some information about the bank. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Matt Bradford, and I am the market president for Home Federal's branch here in Casson. A little bit about the bank. Home Federal has 14 branch offices and 2 production offices, and we're located in Minnesota primarily, with locations in Wisconsin and Iowa as well. We have total assets right of around, I think, $1 billion as a whole, the bank does. The bank actually converted from a mutual savings bank to a public stock institution in 1994, and in August of 2015 they purchased Casson State Bank. I'd actually been employed there for 34 years prior to the purchase, and this year, 2023, will represent my 8th year with Home Federal as market president here in town. I have a staff of 6 that I manage here, and Home Federal offers the full range of financial products. We specialize in home loans. That's actually where Home Federal got their start, in Spring Valley, Minnesota, back in 1934. I found it kind of interesting that was also the first year that Casson State Bank started operations, 1934. A couple of accomplishments for the bank during the heart of the COVID outbreak. Here in town at our branch, we originated 84 Paycheck Protection Program loans totaling about $3 million to help our area businesses and farmers. Home Federal as a whole, as a company, originated about $55 million in PPP loans. That was during the 2 phases of the PPP financing that they offered. A big part of Home Federal's mission statement, obviously, is to support the communities that we serve. That's pretty evident here in town, in Casson-Manville community. A couple of examples would be our 10-year Home Federal Arena naming rights contract we have with the school. That was a $70,000 10-year commitment. 2022, the bank started a seed money campaign where each branch awarded a deserving citizen $1,000 cash. Those citizens were chosen from each branch customer base. They nominated, sent in the nominations. The December winner, which I think was out of one of our Rochester branches, was actually awarded $5,000. And then, of course, just as Casson State Bank did, Home Federal, we support and sponsor a number of community events, organizations, and activities every year. One other challenge, or a challenge for the bank right now, as you guys are all aware of, is rising interest rates. Banks and financial institutions tend to get a black eye when interest rates go up, but we're actually only now approaching historical averages with rates. Interest rates aren't that high. People just kind of forgot that they weren't going to be 2% and 3% forever. But it has been about a 4 to a 4.5% increase over the last 6 months, which we probably haven't seen since the early 80s on there, so that has presented
That fast of a rise.
challenge. Pardon?
That fast of a rise, you mean?
Yes, yep. But other than that, here in our area, I've got a small market and decent competition with MBT Bank, Bremer Bank, the credit union here in town. We've got a branch in Owatonna, and we kind of cover between Casson-Manville to Owatonna, between those 2 branch locations. A couple of my employees I share with the Owatonna branch, Samantha Tripp. She spends the majority of her time over in Owatonna, and our mortgage loan officer kind of covers both of those branches as well. So that's kind of a quick update of Home Federal. If you guys have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them.
What are you seeing with the housing market? I mean, what are you expecting? You expecting kind of a quiet year this year, or? We
are. Refinances obviously are non-existent. We probably saw that quite a bit, Tim, last year, actually, the last quarter for sure of last year, and we look for that to carry forward, I think, this year. I think, rates are one thing, but prices, I mean, when you have a new split in Casson that's approaching $500,000 to build, that's something's got to happen. There's got to be some sort of a correction there as well with the costs, I think.
I guess to that point, I mean, are you, and I mean, obviously, you're privy to some of these things that we're not, you know, are your bank, are they thinking that, you know, we're looking at recession in the next 6 months, or are they thinking more of a, maybe a slowdown and pick up in the fall, or?
You know, coming right from the words of our president, Brad Crable, the last probably 2 or 3 years, we've been, Home Federal as a whole has probably been positioning themselves for a correction of some sort. We're very liquid right now, so hopefully, you know, if things tighten up a little bit or whatever, we'll have the ability and be able to help people get through those times, so. But I think that would be correct to say the next year or two.
You said you had some locations in Wisconsin. Where do you cover in Wisconsin?
Milwaukee.
Milwaukee. Oh, Pewaukee.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Milwaukee. Pewaukee, however you say it.
Okay.
That's right, by Milwaukee.
Tom, you got here late, you're gonna beat me up with any questions, or?
Just for you to earn your certificate?
I think so.
And ask about his interest rates, and, you know, why they don't get better interest rates and all that sort of stuff,
Right,
you know?
right, yeah.
Yes.
Well, I think,
What kind of rates are you offering right now?
What type of loans are you talking about?
I'm talking about CDs, I'm not talking about,
Oh,
I'm talking about the
actually,
reverse. What are you gonna
CD
pay
rates-
me for my money? 'Cause you've been paying me like, you know,
Yep.
.01 the last year and a half here, you know?
Actually, CD rates are now getting to the point where you can actually earn something on them.
You getting 3-4% now? or-
We're getting close to 4%, depending on the term. Yep.
Okay, well, that's pretty good.
We've actually got a Jubilee Club, which is our senior club, for all
I
of
mean,
our
I'm kind of
senior-
looking like a senior now, you know, I mean, the hair's getting pretty thin.
Closer,
so, you know.
yep.
Sign me up here.
And we're actually offering on any of our standard certificates right now, another 0.5% bump for our Jubilee members, or new money to the bank.
Okay.
Yep. But yeah, they're probably running, probably right at around 2.5% to right around 4.25%, depending on the term and the amount.
Do you anticipate that there'll be any kind of, I mean, obviously you have a newer location here, which is, it's a nice location in Casson, you know, a newer build. With staff turnover, are you having a hard time recruiting? Are you having, you know, are you seeing a lot of people turn over now, or what are you thinking of that?
Staffing is difficult. We actually, here in town, we've been fortunate. We, pretty much, they hired from within. Pretty much, they were all Casson State Bank employees. We've lost a few of those. We've got another one retired in March, but we've already hired a replacement. But we're usually, again, as a company as a whole, they're usually looking for spots to fill. It's tough. A lot of people are stealing each other's employees.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah. A lot of
What kind of educational background, if I've got, you know, we've got this internship program now, the school's starting
Yep.
up. I don't know if you guys are participating in that or not, but, or gonna try to at least. You know, what kind of recommendation would you make for a kid who's interested in the banking industry?
Yep. On the internship program, just to address that quickly, we're not too excited about the current one that the school is offering for confidentiality. But we have an intern, and we got it from Castle High School, and she's gonna work at the bank. She works the summer months through her college years, and then we will approach the school about another intern. But then they're basically a regular full-time seasonal hire, I should say, or whatever.
They kind of slide into like loan officer then, or they, you know, 'cause
No, we would
going
put
to
them-
college, it wouldn't be a teller right away, would they?
Tellers are kind of extinct anymore. They're like universal bankers, so to speak. We would start them right on the front line, because that's where they familiarize themselves with the day-to-day transactions, get to know our clients, that type of thing. And then depending on their skill level and their interest and stuff, they can move into opening new accounts, consumer lending, that type of thing. Yep. And actually, the summer intern that we've got right now is going to school for business, and we're hoping that she enjoys working with us in the summer, and we more than likely will offer her a position when she finishes up school.
Well, I think that's great if you can create that pipeline, you know, for the kids, because otherwise you have a hard time getting them now, so.
I'm an intern. I started in 1981, a 30-day internship at Casson State Bank with Dick Palmer, and he hired me 2 weeks after the internship.
40 years later, you're...
Got it.
He's still an intern.
No.
I feel like it sometimes.
Still an
Yeah.
intern, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, thanks again for featuring us. We appreciate it, so.
Thank you.
Take a picture with
Certificate here.
A little wet around the edges still.
Just gonna get a, give your camera.
Yeah, can...
One for you, I'll get one for you. yeah.
Okay, perfect.
We just stand right in front there, kind of
Okay.
a seal there. I didn't bring that, if you want to do one for us.
Yeah, I'll get one.
And then we'll live here. I did it before. There we go. All right, perfect.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Yeah.
Thanks,
guys.
Matt.
I will say Matt is involved with the Chamber of Commerce too, so we really appreciate the work he does with them. I know it's not always fun being the treasurer for groups like that. And he's, how long have you been doing it now, Matt? Couple
Starting my 5th year.
Fifth
I got
year,
2 to
so-
go.
There you go. Let's hear that.
Who's counting?
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Mr. Chair, I recommend that we go back to our original agenda with our quorum present now.
Yes.
You guys got packets?
Sure, right here. Did you get one, Matt?
We're good.
Let him get that. All right. So we'll go right ahead and, everybody get a chance to look at the minutes of the previous meeting. If there's no discussion, I'll take approval.
Make a motion to approve?
I'll second.
All in favor? There was no financial report available for this meeting.
When we have that available, we will email that out to you, but, right now, we're going through a staff turnover, so we expect to have that later in the week.
So we'll go ahead and move on to the coordinator's report.
Yeah, so as far as business visits, assistance, and some community updates, Tim and I have been in various meetings and conversations with a few different businesses here in town that are looking at doing some expansions, including Minnesota Ag Group, the Implement Dealership, and then LC Trucking. They're looking for a new location that now that Quick Trip is going to be moving into their current site, and also Windsor Court. And aside from that, I've been in a few other meetings and other things going on, like the internship fair that I attended, looking for an intern for the city for next school year at some point. And then I also attended a meeting for the Dodge County Regional Park that's under works. And then I also attended a meeting for the Southeast Economic Development Professionals. Let's see, we had our business spotlight here, Home Federal Savings Bank. Later on, we'll be talking about a business facade improvement program submission from Caribou Enterprises, along with a contribution to Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation. And then also want to talk about some priorities from 2022 and also setting some priorities for 2023. And then just some other updates. The Rethos Downtown Assessment Return Visit is now going to be on January 11th at 5 p.m. here at City Hall. And for the tax abatement requests that we've been working on for the Dollar Store, just some updates on that. They did end up applying for tax abatement from Dodge County, although the Dodge County EDA rejected the request because they have a specific policy that states about competing businesses. And then aside from that, we've got our public hearing for tax abatement from Casson on January 11th as well. There'll be a public hearing and then maybe a decision on that date as well. And then for the Petals to Metals downtown lots, the information that I have in my report is now incorrect because about 10 minutes after I sent out the report, I got an update from Jill Bondus from Petals to Metals, and she said that she got the engineering report back from CVT, and based on what was in that report, she did not feel comfortable moving forward with the purchase. So, I guess we'll be looking at other interested parties for selling those lots instead.
Did she provide a copy of the report?
No, she did not provide a
She
copy.
mentioned what...
We paid for that report, right?
No.
Only
No,
if
she
she
did.
bought the lot.
Okay. Oh, only if she bought the lot, okay.
Correct.
She mentioned what the findings were?
Let's see.
You can bring up her email from
Yeah, I'll
last week.
try and find it. She said, the topsoil and fill materials are unsuitable for support and should be completely removed from the entire building area, along with any old foundations, slabs, utilities, soft soils, debris, or otherwise deleterious materials that may be discovered during construction. The topsoil and fill materials were about 6.5 to 7.5 feet deep at the locations explored. That's all that she shared about the report.
So they just cut it off and threw the dirt back on top of it. And
That's what it
Common
sounds like.
approach to it.
Okay.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? Go
Yeah, go
back
ahead.
one to the competing businesses with the Dodge County EDA. What's the parameter there that they have competing businesses,
With the,
that they denied the request?
and the Dollar General that's right next to it. Their policy isn't very explicit with what it says. It just says competing in businesses unless the project creates substantial employment or tax base. But I didn't ask what constitutes substantial employment or tax base. So.
Just going off, we have a lot of competing businesses in any market.
Yeah, it's just an easy way out to not participate, in my opinion. I
That's
mean,
a
and I
gray
get
area.
where you could have the opinion of, we don't want to subsidize a business that's going to compete with another business right next door. I get that part of it, but the other hand, these are subsidies or tax abatements we do for pretty much anybody who applies for them and meets the criteria. So it's not like we're picking, the government shouldn't pick winners and losers in the marketplace.
Right.
I mean, my opinion
I agree.
anyway. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily build their building for them to build it next door to them, but we're trying to develop this land to make access in that, and it
Bring
so it
employment.
fits with ours, and the county just has that paragraph that gives them an easy out to say, hey, it's a competing business, we don't wanna, with no definition of what is substantial. So,
I mean, what it comes down to is they don't really care.
they don't want to subsidize the taxes.
I mean, they don't, it's a county, they don't care, so, which is, like you said, it is their prerogative, I guess.
Sure, yeah, okay.
One thing, just I wanted to, let's see here, you had in your report here, just talking a little bit about, what was this? Oh, this, so there's, just looking for you guys to think about it a little bit, and we'll be talking to planning and zoning a little bit too about it, but, a couple of years ago, the EDA had kind of come up with a plan for that southwest property, or kind of had helped facilitate a plan, working with the city council. It's 40 acres, sort of south and west of the cemetery and the trailer court. Like Ian mentioned, we did have a sit-down with the owner of the trailer court. They'd like to expand. I don't know if that's the highest and best use of the property, but at the same time, the positive to that is they do build it themselves. There isn't any city involvement needed. They are looking at a project that's a little bit more along the lines of like South Fork in terms of it's more modular homes. It's not a trailer expansion per se. They don't really do those anymore, but, so one thing we will be doing is looking to see if there's, interest from other folks, other developers. If there's interest from this developer, there may be other interest from other developers. I know that Ian followed up with one of our local developers last week. I don't know if you've got a response yet.
I did not.
But, we'll certainly share that, but, obviously we'll be looking at different things there to try and get that developed. Right now, the current plan we have has a little bit more commercial industrial lots than maybe would be needed, I don't know. The question I have for the EDA is, how important is it for us to have commercial industrial lots available, for the city to have those available, versus saying, hey, one thing I thought of was like, well, okay, we've got the Vail property, let's say that developed out, all of a sudden now you've got, somebody builds a road and they put apartment complexes on both sides of it all the way through, like, is that something we'd be willing to entertain, or not? I know I was over in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin, my sister lives over the holidays, and I don't know if you've been over there, probably not, but it's right by the American Family Campus, the insurance company where she lives, and it's fascinating, to see the road that you drive in on 5 years ago, cornfields, and now today, between Madison and Sun Prairie proper, they're the 100-unit apartment complexes the whole way through. And some of them are senior-focused, a couple of them are like low-income, whatever. And there's a couple other businesses that have popped up, like Quick Trip and, a couple other things, but, they've gone from 5,000 people in Sun Prairie in 1990 to 37,000 today. And a lot of that is on the back of these basically luxury apartments. So I don't know but we're gonna need some feedback, because obviously there's some interest in it, and I already talked to Mayor a little bit about it too, just to let him know that we had met with them, and be asking the city council, but it's the only property the city really controls. We get emails all the time, like, well, why doesn't the city do this, or why doesn't the city do that? I got an email this weekend that I forwarded on to Ian, from someone complaining about, Hy-Vee, and how, Hy-Vee's we should be recruiting another grocery store to town. And, you know what? We're gonna reach out to Hy-Vee and see if they might wanna do a full-size, because I think they could use a full-size Hy-Vee. Other than that, it isn't really the place, from my perspective, to recruit other grocery stores. Right. Doesn't make a lot of sense for me, like we have a grocery store, but, you know, people want what they want, and that's fine. But anyway, just wanted to let you know, that's kind of the backstory on that a little bit more, is that there is interest there. The perspective of the company is that they would do the development. They would do a plat, they would do a, you know, subdivision, basically. There wouldn't have to be a lot of city involvement, which I'll admit is attractive to me, because I don't really want to spend money that I don't have to do infrastructure if somebody else is willing to do it. But, does anybody have any questions on that?
You were talking at Windsor Court,
Yeah, the folks that own that, it's a ALS company.
Would they be looking at the, you know, going around the cemetery like the land we have?
So we had shared, Ian had shared the schematic that we had kind of
Yeah.
drawn up, and I think they liked that kind of, and they shared a recent subdivision they did in St. Francis, kind of north of the metro. And, you know, basically what they do is they would build something similar to that, but they would all just be housing. You know, they would build, and the way he talked about it, and correct me if I'm wrong, was they were looking at possibly 5 sites per acre. So it would be like .2 lots. And they're like, the companies out of Worthington they use, they're like modular homes. You bring them in, they have a garage attached. So it's a little different from what they're doing now. Although, we went out and looked, and there were a couple of them that I think would be pretty similar to the ones we're talking about in Windsor Court. Some of the newer, no, it's like the newer style, where they're, I think he said they were like between $150,000 and $175,000 a unit, which they see that as affordable housing, which I think would probably be accurate. You know, there'd be more people that would be able to afford that than the $450,000 that Matt's talking about.
What the property owners would own the lot.
I think the way their model works is that the property owner owns the house. They still own the lot. Yeah, it would still be leased, they'd be like leasehold, right, leasehold properties, that's how they make their money, you know, they get those recurring payments,
How
so.
about that corner parcel they could build out to Maryville Avenue on the west
Well,
side?
That's for sale.
I know it.
Yeah, they said they did investigate that.
Not big enough, or?
They did investigate that. That site is, well, they're asking for $750,000 for it, the owner, current owners are. And I know that there are some water issues there. So I think when they looked at that property, they wouldn't be opposed to acquiring it. It would have to be, you know, the price would have to be a lot lower than that for what they're looking at. Also, they knew there'd be some water mitigation, some stormwater, and, that area was delineated back in 2017. It requires at least 1 pond. So you'd kind of have to bisect the lot in half, which for certain businesses could work, but probably not for this so much.
I would just think the way they're laid out now would make sense,
Mhm.
you know, instead of jumping around the cemetery to go on that back.
Yeah, I don't know, I mean,
Straight south,
there is a road connection, so off the
Yeah.
west side of there, the southwest corner, they have like a dead end, where, you know, realistically, if they were gonna design it, they could just bring that road and do another, part of it is, if there was something the council was interested in, we'd just say, hey, you know what, design the subdivision and we'll approve it or we won't. You know, like, we'll make them approve it to our specs. That was one of the other positives, he talked about road design, you know, infrastructure would all be built to the city's standard, so it'd be able to be turned over, the road would be built to the city width, it wouldn't be even, it'd be wider than South Fork is right now, which is an ideal thing, because if we're gonna have to plow it, we need to have the, so I don't know, I mean, it was interesting to hear him talk about it, you know, he said they've run into a lot of opposition, I said, well, I understand, because, you know, most places, they don't wanna talk about expansion of a trailer park, you know, and I'm not sure that we wanna do that either, it's not exactly what he's looking for model-wise, but I do think at the 150 to, you know, 200,000 market, there gonna be plenty of interest, you know, so, anyway, just wanted to highlight that and, let you think about that a little bit, if you've got any feedback or comments, but we'll see if any of our other local developers are interested in the parcel before we do anything, and then bring that to the council, so.
I think because you were asking about the importance of commercial lots along there, right?
Mhm.
I mean, I do think that's, you know, if we concurrently have Shooty developing that kind of his commercial corridor thing up there, I mean, that does open up, that's gonna open up, I think, more. I think one of the reasons that we started talking about commercial lots down there was due to I mean, we have a pretty, short stock, you know, a pretty small stock, I think, of commercial lots, was the concern at the
Yeah,
time.
I mean, I think, you know, what I look at is, you know, we do have lots right up here.
Yep.
You know, there's 3 or 4 lots here that are available. That road gets extended out into the subdivision, I mean, you might have 1 or 2 more. I know that, Mr. Bigelow owns some lots, and there's some other owners of lots kind of, you know, east of Quick Trip there. So, I mean, part of it is like, you know, and planning and zoning will be looking at this too this spring, because they're kind of trying to evaluate, they're looking at the comprehensive plan, we're 5 years into it, they're kind of trying to evaluate whether it still meets what we're looking at or not. You know, one thing that the council received an application last year for annexation for property east of City Hall here for a residential development, Right now, that's like, I think, heavy industry or something like that is how it's comprehensively planned, you know, but realistically, I think the council was open to changing that designation because they felt like, you know, we kind of have to lean into what we have as a strength, which is, you know, it's a bedroom community. But, you know, how many lots are enough, you know, and lots that we don't control, like, what I don't want to do is the city to build a whole bunch of lots and then just give them away. You know, that isn't a model that seems like it needs to be done in Casson. At the same time, using some of the tax subsidies the mayor talked about, you know, that's something we have said, okay, if you're gonna build a building, you might be able to tax abate it, you know? So, yeah, but I mean, that's kind of why I bring it up, because you're right, because, you know, there'll be a secondary commercial corridor up there, there are some lots here, there's some lots on the south side already. How important for us is it to preserve some of those lots or not? You know, it's a nice, ideal location, because it's right by 14. You know, you're right at the intersection of 14 and 57, you know, it would seem to have that good transportation link, you know, 15 minutes from Rochester, but then, you know, it's only 5 minutes more to go over the north side too, you know what I mean? So, no, I appreciate it, that's good feedback, because that's the thing, is trying to determine what's the highest and best use of the property, so. Anyway.
Thank you, Tim.
Yeah, right, we're talking a lot, so you guys can always chime in and say something, that's all right.
We'll move on to our business facade improvement program, Caribou Enterprises.
Yeah, so included in your packets is the application that we received from Caribou Enterprises. That's the building just on the other side of Manorville Ave. It houses Domino's and Preferred Heating and Cooling. So the improvements that they did, they got rid of some exterior brick around the bottom of the building there, and then they replaced it with some new siding. Altogether, the cost of that was about $41,000, and so what they're requesting is the $2,000 in tax abatement. So this project was completed back in May of 2022, I believe, so it's already finished and paid for at this point, but I believe we did talk about it last meeting that we would still consider projects that have already been completed.
It's all correct. I'll move to approve.
We have a motion to approve, do we have a second?
Yeah, I'll second. Third?
I would say I don't like this, you know, myself, like, if we approve, that's fine, but I would say, you know, my own preference would be to reject it myself, because I just think it's 6 months after the fact, this is already done, but that's just wanted to register that.
Because it will, like you say, open up the concept that we've...
Well, I mean, to me, if this is something like, you know, how far back are we gonna go? Did somebody, you know, 2 years ago, somebody did a improvement on their property and then they're gonna get reimbursed? I don't know, I mean, I just think
at
that's...
the last meeting, didn't we say that it had to be the same year?
Same
Yeah.
year, yes.
Sure, and that's fine, I wasn't at the last meeting, so like I said, I'm just I'm just registering the fact that I don't think this is probably the best thing. It's $2,000, it's not a lot of money, I understand that, it's not a big deal.
I think we discussed that if it was done in the same calendar year, you couldn't go back into 2021 and say, oh, I did this.
Sure.
That's too late.
For what it's worth, they were out there working on it yesterday. So that guy's out there working on
Yeah, they're not
building
done.
yesterday, so,
Oh.
Yeah.
for what that's worth, but.
Yeah.
I know they're not done.
The conversation was, you know, so part of it was, Janice brought it up, because I think it's like her nephew or something, and she said, you know, I asked him why he hadn't used the program, and he had no idea about it, yada, you know, whatever, but anyways, the way the conversation went was, we've got plenty of funds left in the program, it's in the same calendar year, and basically, if we had two competing applications where one had not yet been done, and then we had this one, it would be a less competitive application.
Yeah.
And then so long as it's within the same tax year.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is.
And
I fundamentally don't think it's,
Yeah.
you know.
It's not,
but it's not
ideal.
Right.
It's not ideal. I'd say it's an uncompetitive I mean, we could say, I think if they were in higher demand, I would say, yeah, scrap it, but I think part of it's just been, it's
Sure.
not been a real...
Well, that's fair.
So, we have a motion and a second, is there any other further discussion? None? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And we just have to make sure we try to let more people know, but I know there was other businesses in town that I even talked to, and they're like, they didn't want to deal with it. which, like, it's money, all you have to do is apply, but people do what people do, it's their right.
Pretty short application.
Okay, we'll move on, the recap of the 2022 priorities and getting ideas for the 2023.
We're gonna talk about the contribution too.
Could we talk about the contribution
Oh.
to Smith first?
Sorry, I had marked that off because that was my bad.
Okay. Yeah, so, a couple weeks ago, we were approached by a representative from Smith, the Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation, asking for if there were any contributions made to, if there would be any contributions made to Smith for this year. Included in your packets, I've got like a summary of past contributions made. So basically, there's been one contribution from the EDA made since going back as far as 2008, and then every year since, but in varying amounts. Last few years, I believe it was $500. But let's see.
Our budget, wasn't it? I think it's $400 in our budget this year.
Oh.
I'll be honest with you, I've reduced that budget line item a little bit because we just don't see a lot out of Smith, really. You know, the resource thing is nice, that's after 10 years of contributing, so I don't know.
Yeah, they did, what was it, I talked to them a few months back, and they did point out that they did do a, loan to the Chaotic Good Brewing guy, too, so
That's correct.
they did do two things this year, so take that for what you will.
No, I'm not saying we don't contribute, I just, I think that's what budget is, 400. If you wanna do 500, that's fine, but I'll be honest, I mean, I think there's limited usefulness to a certain degree. They tend to focus on smaller cities or cities that are in greater need of certain things like childcare and stuff like that. We're not really in their main corridor, which is fine. They're a good organization.
Yes. Well, with that, I will make a motion that we donate the $400, being that's what we budgeted, to Smith. Contribution, whatever you want to call it.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Now we can do the recap, sorry.
Yeah.
I had marked it off, that was my bad.
Yeah, so I was just looking over past minutes from the previous years, looking at priorities, as it seems that we tend to set new priorities around this time every year. So for 2022, the priorities, I believe there were 4 of them. Let me just pull it up here. Oh yeah, the 4 priorities. 1 was developing the Vail property. 2 was business attraction with a focus on retail. 3 was supporting businesses through the Highway 57 project. And number 4 was housing. So for each of those priorities, maybe we can go through them one by one. So for developing the Vail property, they've got one of the buildings, the first apartment, is well underway. I mean, last time I was out there, they were working on like the roof bracing or bracketing, whatever you call it. Then they're looking at opening those up in July of next year, I believe, or this year. That's correct. So yeah, that one's doing pretty well, I would say. Business attraction with a focus on retail. We've had a few new businesses open up here in Casson, or at least expansions, I would say, so that's pretty good. Supporting businesses through the Highway 57 project. Of course, that'll be going on again this year in the summer, spring and summer, so I'm not sure if there's a more tangible goal associated with that as far as support goes. And then as far as housing goes, I believe I counted 44 permits for new homes in Casson from 2022, so, and then of course the new apartment building as well. So those were the priorities that were set for 2022, and then of course I'll be doing the annual report, which will be presented at the February meeting, so I think that will probably show a bit more detailed evaluation of the priorities that were set. But so I guess we'd also be looking at setting some priorities for 2023, probably at the next meeting once we've had some time to think about some good, tangible priorities to set for the next year.
Well, I think you still want to leave the business and the housing in there, because if we're talking of that property over there, plus you got the potential properties, shooties, you know, we want to keep.
Well, in terms of tangibility, like, you know, so I think a couple of those we'd pull forward for sure. I mean, the business attraction one, and that's always gonna be a goal, that's probably something we can pull forward in '23.
Yep.
I think the Vail one, I think we accomplished largely what we wanted to do out there, gain the road
Possible
built.
housing over here left, you were talking
I
about.
mean, I guess that's the thing is, you know, what do you want us to do on that? You know, and that's something to think about, like, the Highway 57, I think we'd pull that one forward too, because in fact, it'd be more impactful this year
Yes.
probably than it was last year for the business community, I'm sure. So, I mean, I think the Vail one, maybe we can cross off, and then housing, I just want to get a little more specific, because in terms of supporting it, like, you know, Ian talked about, you know, we had 44 permits. I mean, to be honest with you, the city didn't really have a lot to do
No.
with any of the single family.
But
We're tracking the number of permits that get issued, we're tracking the number of the lot count.
I think that would
See what's
work more of
available.
working with developers for apartments, and,
Okay.
you know, we want to keep, like we did with the Val property, we worked with them to make that work, and, you know, if we have that property to the south, like you're talking, if that's potential, you know, if we could turn that into some housing and commercial resident, or industrial out there, that'd be good, because right now it's sitting there doing nothing. If
Right.
we start looking at potentially,
Well, I mean, realistically, you know, so one step that would be a tangible step would be to actually put like an RF and say, okay, you know, big developer, you just want to buy this land and give us a master plan for what you're looking at doing. I mean, that's what they would do in Rochester.
Right.
Is Rochester, or like I said, Sun Prairie, like, I'm sure that's what they did. They said, hey, give us a master plan, you're gonna build the road, you're gonna put the brew pub here, and the quick trip here, and the big subdivision, you know, the apartment complexes, that's kinda how it develops, like in the metro too, you
Sure.
see it.
I just think it would be.
And I mean, that's
good for-
something we could do, is we could get an RFP together and do that, and actually shop it, and see what the best.
It
property-
doesn't
I mean,
hurt.
Are we interested in doing it this year with the market being slow, or are we, you know, are we not thinking it's gonna go?
Let them decide.
Let them decide, but we could put our feelers out.
I think the variety of housing is the key.
Yes.
And we have the apartments, if they did something else like South Fork out here, we've got single-family stuff.
Mhm.
It's kind of the cart and the horse thing with business over the last 6 years of trying to attract industry. We don't have a lot of places for people to live
Right.
that would work at an industrial,
Exactly.
if you want to think of traditional
Yep.
industrial business. If we expand our variety of housing, that might be more attractive to a small manufacturer that employs 15 or 20 people to be here, because now there's a place for those people.
Well, I mean, that's a really good point. You know, like I said, we talk about the price points, like, let's say they build a luxury apartment and it's, you know, $1,700 a month, like, those aren't necessarily the workers who are gonna work in your industrial, you know, your warehouse.
Right.
You know, or even the data center or something like that, really, you know, so, that's a really good point, but I mean, so, I mean, I definitely think we can pull forward business attraction, and, you know, we're always looking at that. The Highway 57, development of the southwest property, so maybe not just housing, but maybe like,
Yeah.
that's only the really one we can control.
Yes.
You know, we'll keep working with people out at Vail. You know, I'd love to get all those lots filled. I'd love people to just finish that road and be done with it, because it's less work for me, really, in the long run. So I've got 3 good ones. Maybe if you guys can think about that over the next month and try to come up with like a 4th, you know, or if there's something else that really sticks out. You know, I thought about like, you know, hey, if we really, like, let's just say I could sell that property down there in the southwest, you know, and say 40 acres and I got 10,000 a lot, or 10,000 an acre or something like that, and that's a good chunk of change. What if I take $100,000 and I just say, hey, we're gonna spend this on downtown beautification, you know, and we're gonna kinda just give grants instead of even doing, you know, our smaller program. We say, hey, we want everybody to really look, you know, we want to really jazz it up, because that's what a lot of these cities that have had success have done. You know, they've really committed some dollars to it and said, hey, we're gonna almost make you take this money, otherwise they're not gonna do it, you know what I mean?
And we'll get this Rethos report back on.
And that's gonna be helpful.
That'll help us,
So that'll
yes.
help us too.
Yeah, absolutely. And what we'll do is, when we get that report, we'll try and get copies sent out to the EDA members, if you're not able to join us on the 11th, so. But,
You know, one thing with supporting through the 57 business support type of thing, I do think if there's a way to more effective, you know, so we have a lot of, we do have a number of construction projects with pretty high, like high personnel counts on them. If there's any way to encourage some of those workers to do things like buy their lunch or buy whatever at some of the local business, impacted businesses, I don't know what, you know, what the exact way of doing that is, but that would be one thing, to do. You know, I know that was another conversation, you know, that's another conversation that, like, say that, you know, we've had that wind project, the next era people talking about how they're looking at this big construction deal. Yeah, that'd be another conversation that I'd have through the chamber is, you know, how can we encourage those people to do business while they're in town?
Well, part of that, the businesses have to go out and, let themselves be known that they're here and put it out. I don't know as if we can push people there. The businesses have to attract them in. I mean, we can potentially tell them when they're here that there's businesses downtown to eat and shop at, but it's gonna be up to the businesses to attract them in, more than it is for us. 'Cause you can suggest people go there, but even if they go there, then doesn't mean they'll buy there. I mean, it's gotta be up, the businesses have to put the bigger effort into it more than the city.
I mean, I am hopeful, like, for example, with Tammy's Place, the new restaurant on Main Street, that'll have a little bit more visual appeal. I mean, part of the issue I run into is, like, let's just take some of these folks that worked on 57 this year, they're making a good income, these guys working on the street project, in town here, they can go to fast food, they can go to McDonald's, or not McDonald's, Burger King, or Subway, or Pizza.
Quick Trip.
Or Quick Trip. Or maybe they can go to events, maybe, that's, to be honest with you, a little hit or miss sometimes. Or that, Country Pleasures was closed half of the summer, half the time. So I think it'd be helpful to have a restaurant where they can say, hey, I'll go get a burger and a beer, and then I'll go back to work. Because those are the kind of guys.
Let's get to the beer part.
Yeah, you might want to.
I'm talking about guys working on a street project here.
Those are the guys I want not to do.
Anyway, but that's the thing is, like, we run into, and I hear this feedback all the time from people in the community. We get emails like, well, why isn't there more in Casson? We go to Byron and there's all these restaurants and stuff. And I'm not saying there, you go to the Bears Den or you go to the bowling alley, like, yeah, they're not bad. They're very nice. Like, how do we translate that over here? I don't know. We gotta start with one that people are willing to take the risk. Like I said, restaurant business is not an easy one. But, I mean, I don't disagree with you. It's just a matter of, some folks are gonna go into a restaurant once and they're gonna say, not doing that again, and they're not gonna, if it's not that nice.
Yep.
And I wish I could, I don't have a magic wand, I wish, I could just kinda say, boom, but I agree. I mean, it is communicating, like, we do have these things here, stay at the hotel if it's easier, convenient for you, get your laundry done at the laundromat, go and get a sandwich someplace, but, I mean, I think your idea with the chamber, is good. We like to coordinate with them, and the chamber's looking at doing this chamber passport thing, so you get it, it should be beneficial, I think, for people to kinda try to create repeat business for folks and stuff, I mean, but it's just like, I don't know. Part of it is we're landlocked, Byron's got a lot of, along the frontage road, they've got land, and they were able to kinda build these standalone, like, plop, plop, plop. We've got a downtown that, I got a lot that apparently has some stuff in the ground I can't build on. But other than that, I don't know. It's a good point, though.
Do you have any members that have a food truck? Go to them.
Right, that'd be a good one.
Yeah, food trucks. I think,
Because there's lots that people let them park on.
I think there's a couple, but yeah, no, I think there's, so I mean, I think there's option, I don't know, I think food truck's a good point, but yeah, and I don't know what the solution is. I agree, like, there's certain businesses, I mean, they're gonna decide whether it works for them or not, right?
Yep.
I do think, I do think there's a little bit of a communication avenue that the city's gonna have, especially with the 57 project, 'cause those are, the city's the one that's contracting them or communicating with them or whatever on stuff, and so if there is a way to, like you said, give the initial communication.
Yeah.
But the businesses gotta, I mean,
Gotta want it.
they gotta swim, they're gonna sink or swim on their own, that's up to them, but, I wasn't sure if there was I don't know if there's low-hanging fruit there that we can, because you do end up with just all these additional people that I do think tend to buy, seems like they buy a lot of food and drink, like you go by and it's like, oh, there's all these Burger King cups or
Pete's got quite a bit of business out
pizza,
there.
pizza, Funyuns, whatever, I don't know.
Pete's had so much. I mean, I know on third, fourth, and fifth project, Scott Lampin, because they had the contract for that, he had an open account at the Legion. So the guys, when they were serving lunch those 2 or 3 days, they would go in there for lunch and then,
Just charge it to them.
yeah, some,
I mean,
a lot of it comes down to, I think, from a government standpoint, EDA, we should really concentrate on helping with the communication that here's how you get to those businesses.
Yes.
Okay, the road's closed, but it's still open. I don't know where you communicate that, where you can, or make sure the signage is appropriate, to get people downtown. And then we have contacts for the construction management with the state and with WHKS, because they're the ones on the ground every day. If you could provide that to everybody in the affected area and just say, if you believe your business could benefit from the added traffic in town, here's the construction people's contacts. If you want a restaurant or whatever business it might be, you could say, hey, just let you know we're open, here's our hours, here's our menu, we're available. And if we concentrate on letting everybody know
How to get there.
downtown's still open, here's how you get there.
Yes.
And we can be the conduit as far as, hey, if you're an eating establishment, just like the facade improvement, we can show them this program, but they're gonna have to choose to participate or not. Hey, here's the construction manager's name, and email address, whatever it is, let them know your restaurant's open, let them know what your hours are. If we...
Have incentive too, that's the problem too, we can't just like walk in and they have like a special deal for
Sure.
workers or something.
Right, do the construction lunch
Yeah.
or whatever,
And
$8.99 lunch or whatever.
And that's up to the business
Yep,
to
exactly.
seize that opportunity, right? I mean, it's like, hey, here's the person who's controlling all these people every day and their schedule and getting them there. If I own a restaurant or a bar or
I'd reach
whatever
out
it
to
would
them,
be,
yeah.
I would be right there every day saying, hey,
You know,
here's
and
a
I mean,
special
the
today.
two that you're looking at, like Pete's and the Asian restaurant, like, they're gonna be literally right there.
Yeah, and Tammy's place.
Tammy's
Place a little further down, yeah. I mean, the interesting part about this is, if this goes properly, the way it's supposed to work, that it really should just be the month of May and June.
Yeah.
And then it should be done.
6 to 8 weeks is all it should be.
And, 'cause, I mean, so, how much impact will it really have? I mean, we talked about that, we did that, mitigation loans last year. I don't think we had anybody interested in it. I don't necessarily know that we'll have anybody again this year, 'cause it's literally gonna be 2 months.
Right.
If it doesn't go properly and like, it stretches, yeah,
Weather
it's gonna be more
happens.
impactful, but
Yeah.
that's the whole point, is that it should be, the 34 roundabout shouldn't impact the downtown a ton. The one on Main Street will be very impactful, right?
Well,
So,
the issue also is gonna be that 16th is gonna be closed at the same time.
that's true.
So the signage from the west is gonna be the most imperative.
Yes.
As they're coming down the dump road, hey, Main Street is still open. Where you had signs at Fifth, Main Street, again, when they come by where the brewery's at now to get back to Main Street from the south. But I think, I mean, the state put up a few last year, and it was like Casamarieville Schools with an arrow.
Yeah.
And then nothing else.
Nothing.
So I think we need to be more diligent on the state to say, hey, you're disrupting the traffic.
Well, and we did put some money away too, to, if we have to buy our own signs for some of this stuff.
Sure.
I mean, that's, and I'm cognizant of it. The way it ended up working out last year is we didn't know exactly how it was gonna go. We didn't know they were gonna
Right.
split into 2 pieces
Right.
over 2 years until halfway into the summer, really.
Yeah.
Actually, it worked out
It worked out
Worked out.
actually relatively well,
better,
I think.
probably.
I mean, it would've been a real mess if they would've tried to slam it all in.
Yeah.
It would've gone long and it wouldn't have got done, so. But anyway, so just some things to think about, and I appreciate the feedback. I mean, really, the trick is that we wanna be doing stuff that you guys are interested in. Like, especially like when I task Ian, I say, hey, Ian, let's work on this, like, it's usually Tim kinda making something up, and let's go get a pizza ranch or something, but
Right.
that's a visit, we have to go over to Owatonna still, and,
Well-
we have to try that out to make sure it's okay, first. before
I'm
we-
sure you've been to a pizza ranch.
Yeah.
Would it be a good task for Ian as
It
part
would.
of this
It would.
2020, well, that would too, also. You just need somebody with about $1.3 million that can have their own franchise.
Hey, we looked into that, that's true.
But it's to task Ian with, what are the food and beverage establishments that are gonna be affected downtown, or anywhere in town, really,
Yep.
that, to talk to them, to say, hey, this is coming up in May and June. Think about putting together some kind of a flyer, lunch menu, what your hours are, whatever.
And give them the
And we'll
email
provide you
address.
the person who to get that to, so they know ahead of
Send it out to
time.
them, Yeah.
And that way, they've at least been told by the EDA several times, and if they wanna ride that bull, they can, if not, they can just let her go.
I mean, the other thing I thought about doing was trying to do some kind of survey, like community surveys. And I know that has limited utility because you only get so many responses. You
Mhm.
can send out 5,000 surveys and you get 100
100
back, and is that there's a certain percentage of failure, like any poll. But it's like, what kind of food choices are people interested in? And that's not something I can do, is force somebody to open a pizza place, but I can at least go and say, hey, here's what the public say they want. I follow the Casson Parents page sometimes,
Yeah.
probably more than I should, but, I hear all the complaints, no one ever on the page, there never seems to be a lot of solutions offered anywhere.
Here's the thing, you can ask people what they're interested in is a totally different question than what would you support?
Or they
Yeah.
actually go to on a regular basis.
Support.
That's the thing with restaurants. I used to run a restaurant in Alaska Lodge in Alaska for years, so I've been in that side of the business a little bit. Casson is really good at telling you what they would want to have, but very poor at actually going to it if it opens.
Yes.
So, because a lot of it is during the daytime hours, the majority of our people aren't here. So, to go get lunch somewhere, because there's a great lunch place, 80% of our residents are gone during the day. They aren't even available for here, you know. If you're gonna ask that question, it's not, now what are you interested in? Because you'll get a list, Taco Bell will be number one, you know, it's always been number one.
Always has.
When I used to go to school and talk to the kids in school, when are we gonna get Taco Bell? We're not, you know, so, it's, what are you willing to go spend your money at?
And support to make stay.
Well, if you ask the kids, only a fraction of them can get out of school to go to a lunch.
Seniors.
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 That's it.
Small fraction.
Right,
So, if
And
you
not
ask
even
an
all the
eighth grader that
seniors
wants a
can get
taco,
right.
it's not gonna work.
Not
What's
even,
done a really good job will be Hidden Pines over the last 7, 8 months. Very good business, very good menu, good people running it, friendly, good service, and they're busy. And people are
So
supporting.
that's, that too, is that lunch hour, I mean, you only get a certain amount of time. You
Right.
can't sit down
Yeah.
for 2 hours,
Yeah.
and put some meal, you know, I mean, I'm sure you can, but.
Well, they're closed, they're not even open for lunch
Oh, yeah.
anymore, so there you go.
That's what-
I mean, part of it is getting like them to join the chamber, like Hidden Pines, that'd be a good
They're going
one.
to this year, yeah.
Okay, well, and that's great, because then, like you said, it's all about communication too, it's like, which businesses really are there? Like, I didn't know that the county seat up in Manorville had all the issues they had this last year. I didn't know that they have seafood, or they have Asian or something
They
like that,
tried,
they
yeah.
have sushi, like, I don't know, but, you know, whatever. I didn't know they had that, so who knew, you know, and even like the Asian restaurant in town here, like, I've heard a lot of positive things about, like, you know, they've always been good at takeout, but like, I've heard a lot of good things about it now. It's like, you know, let's help try and get those guys ginned up, you know, but, all right.
One other priority thing, that's not really, it's just an additional one. I will say on the chamber side that we are trying to also expand on, we've kinda got these 4 events, one per fiscal quarter now, which Matt and I like to talk about, things in our fiscal quarters, 'cause we're bankers. But we would like, I do think as we expand those and get them bigger, that, and I'm not really like, event planning isn't my strong suit, which is why other people on our board do a lot more with it. But, I think there's like gonna be more and more things that we, you know, I think we would appreciate, like Ian or somebody's help with just kinda getting these events, I don't know, bigger and better. So,
Planning.
Mhm.
you know, 'cause it does seem like we've been getting, you know, it seems like we've gotten decent turnout. You know, I mean, Christmas in Casson's kind of a stalwart and has a life of its own, and will, you know, I think I'll come and go, and it'll continue to go strongly, but, you know, like, you know, I think St. Patty's Day, we'd like to improve on that. Seemed like around and about, we got a pretty good turnout there, but bigger than I was expecting. And then it seemed like the, Oktoberfest had a decent one, but was very, you know, very concentrated in location. That's what, you know, so anyways, I think each of those have kind of their own things that they did well, you know, and we're, you know, 3 of them are new, you know, they were first time events, so, trying to expand those, I know, like, some of those I think we'd like to see more, bring out like the cottage industry folks, the little, you know, like carve small little things. You know, I know Stevie at the mini mall did a great job bringing them down for the small business Saturday. So trying to encourage, get some of those folks a little more involved, but, anyways, I don't, you know, help with that. I don't know exactly what that is yet, but I do know that that's something we have had conversations about.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that, that's good feedback.
Any items for February? I know you're gonna come back with,
So based on your feedback today, and then any other feedback we'll have a list of 4 or 5 priorities for next year. We'll have a draft copy of the annual report for you to review ahead of the council meeting, in the first meeting in February. I think right now, those are the only items I have of anything pending until something comes up.
Probably review the Rethos thing with EDA.
Yeah, Rethos, we'll go through that,
Rethos,
right?
yeah.
So, and like I said, we'll try and get those reports out to you ahead of time so that you can at least look at it a little bit. if you're not able to join us at the council meeting. So,
Do we have like a forward-looking, like a budget for '23 yet, or are we,
yeah, the budget was approved by the council. We can get a copy of that out to you as well.
I think it'd be,
I mean, it was the same budget that you reviewed in, September, October, so.
yeah. I don't remember, like,
Sure.
as
Why don't we
much as
include
I
a copy
wanna-
of that in our next packet as well with the
Yeah,
financials?
I always find it helpful to look at alongside when we're doing our budgeting.
Sure.
Or our goal setting, 'cause, some of it we can just do and some of it takes money. One other priority for the list, 'cause, we're now, I think, back to square one on the lots, the downtown lots. We probably should revisit that again. Especially if we found out that it's got 8 feet of topsoil that needs to be removed and a foundation underground.
Like perhaps we would look for another use for that space other than a building?
We had some starts on it. In fact, Mike and I are currently the standing committee of the lots. So we could dive back into that, I guess. But I do think that we're gonna have to go, probably revisit it, 'cause
But if a building is gonna put a basement in it, they're gonna dig down all of 8 feet anyway.
Right, yeah, I know, I think the person we were involved with, I just think they got cold feet. And honestly, from her perspective, that there's a building on Main Street that was for sale for $100,000. I mean, it would've made way more sense for her just to buy that.
Yeah.
And it would've been easier, she would've had what she wanted, which was a storefront. She
Yep.
transacted most of her business at her farm anyways. So, I kinda think I don't know that anything on those lots is really insurmountable. It's just a
Yep.
matter of, do you really wanna
The
do it?
person
And how complicated is it gonna be? But that's definitely something we'll add to the agenda, because that's a good point. Because, yeah, I mean, whether it's a building or, because if we want to spend the money on excavating it, that's going to be pretty expensive for what we're going to get. Or if we turn it into a downtown, community garden, or if we just pave it and call it a parking lot, we always get complaints about not having enough parking either. So I'm open to options for sure, so. Pave paradise and parking lot, right?
2 for 2 cars.
Maybe
Oh,
three.
come on now, let's create a few more.
Center.
Take a look. Brandon's very
We have
creative. He
a
can-
motion to adjourn, do we have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody, see you next month.
Thank you, drive safely, be careful out there today. He got 14 stalls over at,
Came on Highway
right
14.
here on the corner.